And we're back live in the very opulent studios of WLCN here in Lincoln, Illinois. Our guest this morning on Viewpoint, with all respect to our Secretary of Transportation, Judith Kay, the Honorable Ray LaHood, and with all respect to former Congressman Barry Goldwater, Jr., this may be the best phone interview subject we will probably have on Viewpoint. It ranges to an area which none of us ever gave one second thought. And here's a young lady who really thought out of the box. And by the way, we probably ought to give a nod of appreciation to our roving reporter up there in La Crosse, Wisconsin, Lois Harvey, who tipped me off to this young lady. And we're indebted to you for that, Lois, and we certainly appreciate Jenny's time with us this morning. One thing I'd like to ask as we come back here, Judith has got something she wants to propound, and I'm going to step aside.
Oh, okay,
I'm stepping aside.
Jenny?
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
This is Judy. We're back on the air, and I wanted to ask you, as you've traveled about the world, and we all, through media, through just overhearing conversations on the part of other people, we form these opinions about every country in the world, you know. And what was, in your mind, the most eye-opening experience that you've had? What was the biggest surprise?
For me, it was traveling to South Africa, and that was the second project I had done. The first project I did was England, so that was easy. They spoke the language, they looked like me, the food was similar.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah.
I had never set foot on the African continent, and South Africa, when I started reading about the history of apartheid and the violence that occurred between the blacks and the whites of that country, you know, apartheid ended in '94, and I traveled there in 2007. And I wondered how I was going to be received with an all-white film crew coming to tell their history. I was terrified that the black South Africans would hate me, that there would be aggression. And you hear Johannesburg's one of the most dangerous places in the world, and carjackings and murders. The first day I sat down with someone and I explained to them that this was to educate students about the world, about their past, the entire country opened up to me. People that I could not have been friends with during the apartheid era because they would have gone to jail for being friends with a white person are now my friends, and I consider them my second family. And that's kind of phenomenal to think that that progress has happened in less than, you know, in a span of 20 years. That 20 years ago you would have gone to prison for being, a black person would have gone to prison for being friends with a white person. But now they're able to maintain that kind of relationship with you.
Would there be any ramifications for the white person befriending the black person?
Most likely not. Most likely not. And that's just like the stark difference between the treatments of the whites and the blacks in South Africa under apartheid. So that was one thing in South Africa. The other thing was, you know, I visited several schools, and it's the first time that I realized when you travel, no matter where you travel to in the world, you are an ambassador for your country. So it was, for me, the first time meeting South Africans, but it was also for the South Africans that I met, it was the first time they had met an American. So instantly it became, you know, do you know celebrities? How many cars do you have? Not realizing that I live in New York City and live in a one-bedroom apartment without a car. But they, just as we get our impressions from the media, the kids that I worked with got their impressions from music videos and Hollywood movies.
Well, that's
so when you
skewed.
travel, you are an ambassador, whether you like it or not. And that's why I think it's very important for Americans who have the ability to travel, because America in the last 10 to 15 years has a very negative opinion abroad. People have a very negative opinion of us. But when you, just the same as when you opened the show and said, you know, it's so important for us to see what foreigners are like, it's important for them to see what we're like.
Are we the ugly American in a lot of cases?
We are, until I sit down with them and my staff sits down with them, and then it's the same thing you said at the beginning. Then there's a face to that person. You know, they say, oh, well, I've met an American, and they weren't like what I thought they would be like.
When you go on location, Jenny, how many will you take with you as far as assistants and photographers and so forth? On an average, will you have 4, 5, or 6?
We're typically a crew of 6. last time, 2 times ago, we took an educator with us, and it's something we'd like to continue to do. Educators don't typically have the financial means to travel, so it's something that we're attempting to do every time we go, because that changes their career as well.
Well, maybe I could get WLCN to assign me a billet on that, and you could have the oldest geezer in captivity out working on your crew. I'll talk with Mr. Ash, the financial director here, and see about that. Of a serious note here, you must have had a little fun when you went to the stock exchange and rang the closing bell. That's kind of an interesting thing. Would you have comment about that?
Yeah, it went full circle. My first job, I used to work at an investment bank, and then, I switched careers, go to work at a nonprofit and travel the world, and where do I end up? Back at the stock exchange.
Yeah, right.
But funny enough, it was 2010, and when I rang it, it was the second highest close to date. So they should just have me come in and ring the bell every day.
Like I said, would you go back often, please? Yes. And your Gold Parents' Choice Award, that's not rather significant. It's very significant. Could you tell us a little bit about that? You're the recipient of that award a couple of times now. Yeah,
the Parents' Choice is sort of like the good housekeeping seal for kids programming, educational programming. Mm-hmm. So you say we have a big staff. It's a staff of volunteers. Right now it's only 2 of us. So we've won the highest level twice, beating Sesame Street twice.
Oh my!
That's pretty significant.
So that's you've got it right when a staff of 2 can beat out PBS.
Golly. I was wondering too, Jenny, since you direct your videos toward education and educators, do you focus a lot on the schooling and education when you're abroad?
You mean from a perspective where we go to film at other schools?
To their schools,
No, we just follow our national curriculum standards here, but we have found that South Africa uses us for their social studies learning because we interviewed all the leaders of their country. Mm-hmm. So we have access to people that no one else has access to for some reason. And I think it's because it's free. So we don't gear it towards their educational system. We gear it towards the American educational system. And that's 90% of our audience.
Right.
Judith, I'm looking at my notes here. We're really in kind of tall cotton this morning. This young lady was also selected as one of the most influential persons in education in 2010. That's pretty significant. So congratulations to you, young lady, on that. That's very significant.
I have to give my mom credit. My mom was a teacher. She recently retired, so it runs in the family.
Well, I'd say she picked her children with great success, wouldn't you?
Yeah, yes.
TED Network. Can you comment about that? I have Googled that up 2 or 3 times, not often, but there's some pretty interesting things on TED. Tell us what TED is, and for the benefit of the listeners out there. And I would apologize for those of you who do not have computers, because the subject matter this morning is really significantly directed towards those with computers. And I would urge the listeners out there to dial up projectexplorer.org. You'll have some fun looking at that. Tell us about TED.
TED is fascinating. TED stands for Technology, Entertainment, and Design. Mm-hmm. And there's an annual conference every year, and people ranging from Al Gore to Richard Branson to Bill Gates have given these 18-minute talks, and it's your 18 minutes to inspire people to change the world, to change the way they look at things. That sprung off a series of conferences called TEDx events. So like New York City will have a TEDx event. It's sort of like the Nobel Prize of the creative industry if you get one of these. So I was asked to give one in South Africa, which was extremely significant to me because that's where I feel like I really understood what it was like to be a traveler for the first time. So I gave one of those in September, an 18-minute talk focusing on being a global citizen. So what it means to be a global citizen and what your obligations are as a global citizen. And apparently it went well because I'm giving another one here in April, and I've been asked to audition for the big talk, the big global talk, next year, which changes your entire career path if you get one of those. You sort of become a celebrity. So
you need to get your PR person, or maybe it's
I
already
am the
done.
PR person.
Yeah, you are the PR person, right? I was just sitting here thinking we ought to have you on PBS. Perhaps you have appeared on PBS, and I'm not aware of it. But to get this national notoriety, that PBS, and they have some great programming, by the way. That's one of the oasis in the vast wasteland, as Newt Minow used to say about what television was all about. He was right then, he was more right today. But it'd be great to see you get some national exposure on a program like. I don't think I want to put you on a Letterman show. I wouldn't demean you. I wouldn't demean you like that. You deserve better than that.
Well, thank you. So if anyone has any connections to Charlie Rose, that would be...
There you go.
Oh, there you go. All righty. Well, maybe we'll look up Charlie and write him a note. What do you think, Judy K?
Yeah. That's good by me.
Now, you have an ongoing series of projects on the planning board. What's coming up here within the next year, Ms. Buccos?
Okay, well, we just debuted last week our Costa Rica and Belize series, so that's online now. In 6 weeks, I head to Mauritius, which is this tiny little island the size of Vermont, just to the east of Madagascar. Very strange place to be going, but very interesting place to be going. And then in the fall, we'll be going to Azerbaijan, which borders Iran. And the reason we picked Azerbaijan is they have an Olympic bid, so people are going to be hearing a lot about Azerbaijan for the Summer Games of 2020. And then it'll be Taiwan after that. And everybody knows, Taiwan from Made in Taiwan, which is, incidentally the name of our series because that's all anyone knows about Taiwan.
I'm interested in your talk on TED, the acronym, about embracing global citizenship. It must be gratifying to you to see people getting on board with that concept, because we've not really embraced the fact that we are all one. In fact, as the world goes, we will go.
Right. And I have gotten criticism on that. People will say, "Well, I'm an American first," but you can be both. There's space to be both. And you can't choose to not be a member of the human race. So whether or not you like it, you are a global citizen, and we do all share the same planet. So.
Well, some days one is more happy than others to be a member of the human race. There are days when you think, oofta, it's just not working very well.
I agree, but you do see the power in that. Think of like when the earthquake happened in Haiti.
Yes,
that's an excellent example of global citizenship. The whole world came together. September 11th, everyone was an American that day.
Yes.
So you do see it.
But why does it always take awfulness? That's, of course, what makes news. The people like me and like Bill, all due respect, Bill, I mean, for you to follow us around would bore you to death. Our lives aren't that exciting. But
sometimes we think they are.
Well, we think we're pretty exciting, but, that's personal opinion. So the things that make the news are the things that are a departure from normal.
Right.
And sometimes they aren't very pretty, and it goes both ways. It goes from this country to the rest of the world and vice versa.
Right, and that's a lot of what I cover in my series. So when we go to film with schools, we don't cover the bad things that have happened in that country. That's another segment. We cover what it's like to just be a kid in another country.
Oh, but that's so
what
perfect.
Is your average day like? And that's when, peers, students start to say, oh, that kid that lives in Costa Rica isn't much different than me.
And it has to be to the kids. I mean, to take somebody like me in the checkout generation and think you're going to change my whole scope of thinking is probably folly.
I'm not trying to change people's scope.
No, but you have to teach the kids that they are a global resident of this globe.
Exactly.
That's where it has to start.
Right.
Jim, I didn't know that we could connect Sir Isaac Newton with a zip line.
See?
You're supposed to, at this age, you're supposed to learn something every day.
Well,
I go out today, I learned something. Let's address your recent project, I think fairly New World, New Millennium.
That's correct.
Talk about that just a minute, please, Jenny.
Okay, so the idea New World, New Millennium, we're talking, things that kids learn in school. Christopher Columbus found the New World. Well, what does that New World look like 400 years later? So we cover everything from the Maya of Belize, who we're all heading up to the Maya 2012 calendar. So sensationalism, is this the end of the world? sort of thing, to, you know, crops that are grown in Costa Rica and where your food comes from, you know, where your cup of coffee comes from every single day. Because it's something that probably most Americans have, and they don't think about the time and effort that goes into it. So it covers everything from, you know, the environment to food, to history, to religion. There are about 50 videos there. It's probably one of the most interesting series I've done. It's visually stunning. Costa Rica and Belize are beautiful places to film with the coral reefs and the rainforest, very challenging places. One of our hosts got malaria while we were there, so it's not a very glamorous job sometimes.
Now, specifically, you're, excuse me, please, I get all choked up when I sit next to Judith Kay here. Excuse me. Specifically, your end product, to use a better word, is directed towards the upper elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, and beyond. That is the essence of what you try to do insofar as education, as far as our American youth are concerned.
That's correct. So about 2nd to 3rd grade through high school. But I can tell you the following that we have on Facebook and Twitter, like you said, I didn't know you could put ziplining and Newton's Law together. We have a huge adult base. And that comes from interviewing people like the First Lady of Belize. I mean, that's just interesting for adults. I learn something every place I go.
Well, and you've talked with people like Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Now that's certainly a household name. My goodness, anybody would be grateful.
Highlight of my life meeting him.
I should suspect.
For a girl who grew up in a farming community, that was the highlight of my life.
Tell me what was most impressive to you about him.
We were interviewing him right around the time of the last election, so right around the time Obama was running, and that was the time they were really trying to encourage young people to get out and vote. No matter what your politics are, no matter what Desmond Tutu's politics are, we asked him what was it like to vote in 1994 for the first time as a black South African, because he didn't have the right to vote until 1994. And he leaned over and he grabbed the hand of my presenter and said, "What was it like the first time you fell in love?" Now, if that's not a powerful thing to get people out to vote,
really?
I don't know what is. And then you have to think, the first time Nelson Mandela voted as a black man, as a free black man in South Africa, he became president of that country.
Is that ever something, huh?
I mean, that's just, again, it has nothing to do with politics either way. It just has to do with the power of having a vote.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The power of using your voice. That's all that segment was about.
This has been a really fascinating morning for the old geezer, Mrs. Busby. And Jim, we appreciate, Jim, you're allowing us to use your phone services. Thanks to Alexander Graham Bell, so we can get this job done. I guess I'd like to sum up by saying here in the hinterlands, those of us who have an interest in education, and there are a number of us out here who are really vitally interested in education. I'm very concerned about what's going on in the system here. We would be doing our youth a favor if we'd let our educators at the elementary schools and so forth know about Jenny Buccos and Project Explorer. I guess that's the best way to go about it, wouldn't it be, Jenny? Is to the personal contact and say, have you heard or do you know about?
Right.
Yeah, well,
and if there are any questions, they can email us. Someone will always get back to them. It's usually me. So.
Okay, good deal.
Well, sincere appreciation to you, and by the way, to our roving reporter there in La Crosse, Wisconsin, Mrs. Harvey. Thank you very much, Lois, for that tip. Jenny, we always try to close Viewpoint with a quotation apropos to the subject matter, and I had used this some time ago on, we had an educational program. Old Oliver Wendell Holmes said, your education begins when what is called your education ends. Thank you very much, Jenny. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you for Viewpoint.
Thank you.
Thank you a lot.